U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened Canada with 50% tariffs on cars, vehicle parts, and steel. It comes after trade talks collapsed last Friday. Now, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney walked away from negotiations, saying that Washington was asking for too much. On Monday, the Prime Minister said there are ways to improve trade between his country and the U.S.
But an attitude at the negotiation table that Canada is a subsidiary of the United States, that Canadian industry is going to be disadvantaged relative to American industry, that we're going to set up terms so that over time Canadian industry is going to face constant headwinds. That's not something we're going to accept.
Well, a short while ago, I spoke with Martha Hall Findlay. She is director of the School of Public Policy at the University of Calgary. She's also a former member of the Canadian Parliament with Prime Minister Carney's party, the Liberals. I asked her if Canada miscalculated its leverage with the U.S.
I don't know if anybody anywhere in the world can count on any kind of leverage in discussions with the United States. From my understanding is that the Canadian negotiators actually felt like they were pretty close to having an arrangement, and that it was Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick who came in at the last minute and derailed everything. I wasn't there. That's what I understand happened. But let's be honest. I mean, Canada already has a trade deal with the United States and Mexico. It was originally called NAFTA, then USMCA or CUSMA. The President of the United States has negated that deal right from the beginning. So I think we all have to question what in quotation marks, a deal is. Mm-hmm. You know, I think the Prime Minister said a signature on a deal would be in pencil. Somebody else, a pundit here in Canada, said more like crayon. We're all just hugely frustrated. I mean, the Americans and Canadians have long benefited from these, open trade arrangements. Mm-hmm. Frankly, at this point, our best approach is in Canada, and some of us have been advocating this for a long time. The Americans are our best allies. Maybe not Donald Trump, but the American businesses and the American consumers that are paying more for significant products like aluminum, raises the cost of a can of beer. They're our best allies, and it's starting to show. People are starting in the United States to protest their own president's tariff approaches.
Do Canadians and Canadian lawmakers, do they see it that way as well?
Well, there's obviously a lot of discussion in the country, and some people have different views. Some people have been saying, be tough. Some people have been saying put on retaliatory tariffs, and some, including me, for example, and our group here have been really recommending be calm. Look, Donald Trump could say one thing today and say something else tomorrow. Look at the behavior of the United States with respect to the war in Iran. Mm-hmm. It's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. Our job really is to make sure that the businesses in Canada that are facing imminent significant challenges are helped. We don't want to have to do that, but we did do that in COVID. COVID was devastating to an awful lot of smaller businesses. Right now, those are the businesses that will probably be hurt the most in Canada. But then who knows, it won't take long for Americans to object to the costs of these tariffs for themselves. Are
you saying then that worst case scenario that you have to maybe bridge the next 2 years, the 2 years that are left in the Trump administration, and with the hope that once President Trump has left the White House, times will get better?
I don't know that the concept of 2 years applies to anything with respect to the Trump administration. They do have midterms coming up. I guaranteed there are a fair number of people in Donald Trump's party who are starting to get increasingly worried. I think Donald Trump should be worried. So who knows? I mean, that's only a couple of months away. But for Canada, I think that one of the things that's important about all of this that has happened is a bit of a wake-up call. It's really easy to be dependent on the United States. Geographically, they're next door. That's not going to change. Language, culture. We've talked about the importance of diversifying to other markets for a long time. This is a wake-up call to make sure that we do everything we can to do that. Not to move away from the United States, but to add, you want to talk leverage, to add leverage of actually being a little bit less dependent.
But isn't this a case? Isn't this a case where free trade and the free market has actually led you down a path that has made you incredibly vulnerable when it comes to the United States?
I wouldn't say that, because free trade has been extremely beneficial to both countries, to all three, to Mexico, because of course our free trade agreement involves all three countries. I wouldn't say that it has left us vulnerable. I would say it's been extremely beneficial, and we have to look in the mirror and say, but we still have had lots of other opportunities in other markets that we haven't capitalized on. So it's not an either or. It's an opportunity for us to say, yes, we want to build wherever we can with our American markets, American colleagues. But yes, we also have opportunities to do much more. We are a Pacific nation, after all. So
what are your options? You know, tonight I spoke with some people in earlier programs about the European Union, for example, trying to maybe take up some of the slack that's being created now with the United States possibly falling out of a trade deal. But who are you going to turn to? Europe, China? I mean, your options are maybe limited, and they certainly are not as good as what you've had.
Well, I'm not saying we're going to give up on what we have, right? You can't change geography. That's a pretty big market right beside us. But then, on the other hand, we're a pretty big market for 30-plus states. So Ohio exports over 30% to Canada. Michigan, I think, is over 40%. It is the Ohioans, the Michigan folks, who are the ones who are now becoming much more vocal in saying, we don't want these tariffs either. So there's that. In terms of options for Canada, we certainly sell an awful lot to other parts of the world. China's in agricultural products. But we also have a new pipeline, a new expanded pipeline to the West Coast for oil. A lot of that is going to China. We're talking about building a new one also or expanded capacity to the West Coast so that we can sell more oil and gas to Asian markets. All of that is very important to us, and it adds. Again, it's not to say it's an either or, but it helps Canada. Is anyone in business will say, don't rely on one customer, don't rely on one supplier. Now that we're expanding our access to those other markets, we're already seeing the benefit of pricing for our oil products, for example, has improved. So we need to continue to do both.
Okay. Martha Hall Findlay with the University of Calgary, good getting your insights on this story tonight. We appreciate it. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And our coverage continues now. I'm joined by Canadian Senator Peter Boehm. Senator Boehm is chair of the Senate Foreign Affairs and International Trade Committee. He's also one of Canada's most experienced diplomats. He's a former ambassador to Germany. Senator, it's good to have you on the program. Let me ask you, you've heard what other people have been saying about this situation. What are we dealing with here? Is this a trade dispute, or is this a relationship crisis?
I think it's all of the above. Certainly, in terms of a trade dispute, this was a dispute that was very much of Donald Trump's making. We have a trade agreement. He decided he did not want to continue with USMCA, or CUSMA as we call it, in its present form. So there have been talks going on with Canada and with our Mexican friends as well that have not been conclusive by any means. And his latest action was to suggest the imposition of 50% tariff on a range of products of ours as a way of getting us to the table to negotiate something. We negotiated something. It wasn't ideal for us, but probably a pain that we could accept. And at the last minute, there were unacceptable requests being made that would threaten our sovereignty, that would threaten the basis of our own nation. So, for example, suggesting that labeling in both English and French would no longer be acceptable for U.S. exporters. That's a red line for us, obviously. We are a bilingual country.
Well,
and the others suggest...
Let me just ask you. You have dealt directly with Washington many times before. How do you explain that the U.S. would try to tell Canada, yeah, you can sell things to us, but get rid of the Française while you're doing it? I mean, where do you think that's coming from?
It's coming from two areas: the tremendous nationalism that President Trump and his administration want to project. And that is the MAGA movement as we see it, and also from a position of relative ignorance. A trade deficit is not a subsidy. We are not ripping off the United States. This is mutual benefit for peoples on both sides of the border. Martha Hall Findlay explained that smaller industries, smaller businesses. We've heard from the Transportation Secretary yesterday that Canada does not have a military. Well, of course it does. We've heard from the Commerce Secretary that Canada does not have unions. We do have labor unions. We're the 10th or 11th largest economy in the world. We're a friend, a neighbor, and an ally, and we should not be treated this way.
Let me ask you, what do many Canadians still not understand about how the United States now views trade, power, and alliances?
I think one needs to differentiate between the United States and U.S. legislators and the administration. The U.S. power is important, and this new version of the Monroe Doctrine, hemispheric power, seems to be omnipresent and omni-important. On the other hand, there are things that the Americans would like to see us do, that we are in the process of doing, increasing our defense spending, for example, working together in other parts of the world on issues. That's always been there. And what Canadians cannot understand is this antipathy and disrespect that we are seeing from the very highest levels of the U.S. government.
Is this antipathy, is it mutual at this point?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we need to differentiate between the administration and Americans. There are cross-border links at the municipal level, at the subnational level, provinces and states. We politicians, we all speak with each other frequently, but there is an administration and a president that has, as we would say in French, an idée fixe as to how he wants to proceed and how he wants to proceed with us. It's going to hurt the U.S. consumer as well, and it might even hurt him in the midterm elections that are coming up.
Senator Boehm, unfortunately, we are out of time, but I hope that we are able to speak again, and I have a feeling that there will be many reasons to do that. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you for having me.